Thank you all for having me and excited to talk to you a little bit about this new course. So a little bit about me and kind of how this came to be. My background really is in human-centered design and engineering. So kind of my first entrance into grad school was to study human-centered design. And I've been applying that in my professional work, mostly designing digital experiences for customers, for employees, for partners, suppliers, things of that nature. And so, kind of thought, okay, how can I take what I'm passionate about and bring it into IKNS? And so kind of the first question might be, why human-centered design? What I figured we would do is try to start with the little video to explain what human-centered design is and then how we're going to apply it in IKNS.
Human-centered design is a creative approach to problem solving, one that starts with people and ends with innovative solutions tailored to meet their needs. When you understand the people you're trying to reach and then design from their perspective, not only will you arrive at unexpected answers, but you'll come up with ideas that they'll embrace. Human-centered design is both how you think and what you do with it. It's a process that consists of 3 phases: inspiration, ideation, and implementation. The inspiration phase is about learning on the fly, opening yourself up to creative possibilities, and trusting that as long as you remain grounded in the desires of the people you're designing for, your ideas will evolve into the right solution. In the ideation phase, you come up with lots of ideas. Some too crazy to work, some too crazy not to try, and you'll refine them, tossing out the bad and improving the good. Making things helps you learn, grow, and test your ideas. Building a simple prototype gets your idea tangible and gives you something to put right back into the hands of the folks you're designing for. Without their input, you won't know if your solution is on target or how to evolve your idea. Keep iterating, testing, and integrating feedback until you've got everything just right. During the implementation phase, you'll build partnerships, shore up your business model, and get your idea out into the world, which was always the goal in the first place. Anyone can practice human-centered design, and everyone benefits because it gets us all to solutions that are adopted and embraced.
So that's human-centered design, and I think the last kind of sticking point is important. Everyone can actually do human-centered design. And so then the question becomes, why talk about this now? And ironically, while we were on break, McKinsey published a podcast around making the case for actually applying more human-centered design in AI. And that actually directly translates into what we're trying to do in the program in IKNS. So right now in Columbia, there's really only one course on human-centered design, and it's a traditional course, what you'd expect, right? Which is really offered in the engineering department. And it's really designed at experienced designers, software developers to produce products, services, systems that are human-centric, that are people-centered, right? But what's interesting is because of the advancement of emerging technology and AI, how we're actually making decisions in organizations is fundamentally changing. And so if we think about it, maybe way, way back in the day, when we made business decisions at work, it was mostly based on just human judgment. This still happens today, but it's not that common, right? I would say, at least in my day-to-day work, some of the creative decisions by, say, creative directors might be made purely on human judgment. But more often than not, we're making human judgment for business decisions with the help of data, right? And how this data is being used is really common today. But the big pivot that we're about to take is now that we have AI, right? AI is going to be taking a lot of the work that we currently do today to understand data and information. And actually going to present this in the form of giving us actual actions that we can take. And the reason this is important is we really need to understand where these predictions, where these possibilities come from, which is why both designing human-centered AI is important. But as strategists and decision makers, we actually need to become parts of the process as well. And so really the focus for my course is kind of helping to prepare us for this world that we're now entering into, where a business leader of the future is really faced with making a lot of decisions with maybe not actually being deeply into the data that they would have been in the past. And so the foundational element of this course starts with ethics. And so that's kind of something that's covered in that McKinsey podcast, which is we really need to cover ethics, not in just one course, but in all of our courses, right? And so, we cover really good work here that really has to do with some of the existing ethical challenges that have surfaced when it comes to data, data science and AI. We'll cover kind of podcasts that cover some of the more common use cases around kind of discrimination and how that's manifested itself. And what does that mean when we start to question, again, the things that we're getting from these AI systems. And really what we'll design to do is try to design a more human-centric data science workflow. So really what we'll do in this course is kind of break down the data science workflow and use tools. So use text, use tools from IDEO, kind of a thought leader in this space, to really think through how do we actually involve humans and the right humans in every kind of step of the data science process. And the key here is that, my hypothesis is that leaders of tomorrow won't just be participants, right? They're just not consuming data or consuming recommendations, but they need to be participants, not just recipients of this information. And so this is designed to kind of equip them with what they need to actually be active participants, not just recipients. The second kind of cornerstone of the course is really thinking through how we visualize data for people and how to tell stories with data, right? So if we're getting a better sense of the data and what we're trying to motivate people to do, how do we do this leveraging a human-centered design process? So in that short video clip, you would have heard, leveraging an iterative design process. And so what really becomes important is when you think about data and strategy, it can follow this process, right? You have to understand your audience. You have to understand the objective that you have. What are you trying to motivate your audience to do? And then what is the data that you're actually using to support your motivation? And how do you construct that in a way that is actually easy for people to digest and respond to? You can then take this to people, test it, and improve upon it, right? So what we'll actually do is we'll put students through a process where they're going to visualize data, they're going to iterate it by taking it to real people, getting feedback, and improving upon it, and being able to kind of reflect on applying human-centered design to a data visualization applied in kind of a strategic context. And so 5 kind of key learning objectives for the course. The first is really just understanding how people can be and should be more involved in the data science workflow or the process. How to take a more critical perspective on kind of the social and ethical elements of data, and being able to kind of really identify things that are happening right here, right now, and developing a position on that. Applying human-centered design to design more effective data and information visualizations that people can understand and respond to. And we'll also go into what drives human motivation and decision-making, and learn how you can apply this within organizational settings and contexts to kind of further your strategic objective. And the idea here is that we can apply all of this and really improve trust in data and use human-centric data to kind of really drive strategy looking towards the future. How the course manifests itself in terms of assignments, it's a nice mix of individual and team assignments. So the kind of first initial component of the course is really doing that homework to look at ethical challenges and then writing a paper on an ethical challenge. Eventually, students will work individually on that human-centric information visualization, take it through an iterative process. And then the big project for the term is really a team and individual-based project. So the team project really centers around identifying an internal corporate social responsibility initiative they'd like to launch. The idea here is how do they find data to motivate their cause and actually design that initiative? Then, how do they implement kind of a measurement framework to track its success and its impact to people? And ultimately, what they'll need to do is present that back and reflect on it with a paper. So that's the course in a nutshell. I think I'm right on time. So if there's any questions, we'll be happy to answer them if we have time.
Any questions to Blake?
Yeah. Are you using any tools like data visualization or any of the AI models that the students actually get their hands on practice with?
Yeah, so in one sense, from a data visualization perspective, they'll be using specific software and tools, but most of what they're going to get an exposure to is like toolkits and methodologies. So leveraging things from IDEO, in a large part, will be kind of applying these methods and toolkits rather than getting super hands-on with specific softwares and tools. But the goal would be that they will get more practice, with actual data visualization using software, and then kind of applying human-centered design methodologies, kind of integrating the two, if that answers your question.
Just a quick follow-up to this question. What particular tool are you using?
So for data visualization, we'll use Tableau. And basically, they'll be able to, we'll provide them with kind of data sets that they can use, or they can try to find or create their own initial data set that they feel like they want to use to motivate.
Yeah, just a quick
Yeah,
comment.
sure.
I saw you're using Schwabish book, which is, we've been using that in storytelling.
Yeah,
It's a really wonderful sort of guide for data visualization.
yeah,
So I found that really interesting as you were talking, is the intersections that I see with many of the different programs that we have here. So I'd be interested to hear how this goes and how, it might impact other programs.
yeah. A little share would be great.
So
Yeah.
thank you very much, Blake.
Absolutely. Thank you.